As soon as I put it up on Facebook, all of a sudden there's this huge window, and it's like giving this disclaimer about sovereign citizens and what their status is, who they are, and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, wow, they are really on this. And I think that is one important reason we should do this tonight, so we can clear the air and let you decide, what is truly behind this situation. Okay. You might have heard of this ongoing debate, as it were. Okay. So let me just finish here. I do see you there, Artie. Give me one moment here to get some stuff out of the way. I thank you for being here. All right. Let's see here. What else we got? Oh, okay. Also, I do have products such as like these T-shirts and things like that. The Knowledge Well T-shirt, they have little sayings on them and all that kind of stuff. All right. So at Knowledgewell, media.square site, you can go there. I have some books, some pamphlets, and things like that of studies and research that I've done. So if you want to do that, you're more than welcome, whichever position you are in tonight. Okay. So let me look at the comments section. All right. Okay. Of course, we're going to have a few trolls in there, but that's okay. We can deal with them. All right. So I'm going to bring on Artie now. Allow Artie to introduce himself and kind of tell about himself, whatever he chooses to share. I'll give him that time. All
Hello,
right, Artie. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I was telling you when you had subscribed, I did see when you subscribed at the time in which you subscribed. And I was like, man, I have heard about Artie so many different sites and things like that, or platforms. And I was like, man, one day I hope to, kick the bobo with you a little bit, have a chat with you. So I'm glad you're here, man.
Right on. Where we discovered each other, I had been following that channel for not too long, but for a little while. And so I had an understanding of what was going on in that respect. So, I mean, this is kind of, impromptu. Normally, I kind of plan these things ahead of time, but I have the time, so here I am. I have an idea of what you want to discuss specifically, because this kind of entire endeavor can encompass a whole lot of different topics. Yeah. But I understand you wanted to limit it to a certain facet. For those who don't know, I have my own channel, Artie's Corporate Fiction, here on YouTube. I am an attorney by day. That's my usual job. Most of my channel kind of deals with the specific topic that we're going to be discussing. So there's my plug.
All right. Thank you for that, Artie. Artie, I want to make a banner for you so I can put it up so that people can come to your location. Can you give me what you want me to type in there?
A banner?
Yeah, like I can put a banner up on the screen so that like every once in a while I can bring it up so it'll say like where your platform is or whatever, or how they can reach you.
Sure. Let me go ahead and get that link right there.
Okay. Yeah, you could probably put it in the comment section, right?
I not directly on here, but I can give it to you in the private chat, and then you can post it on there.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, I got it. Here we go. Thank you. Excellent. All right, let me see. So I should be able to copy that, right? All right. So it's not giving me an option to copy it. Let me see here. Oh, there we go. There we go. Got it. All right. So I'm going to put it in the banner here. Banner, and I'll put it up. There we go. Well, okay, so I'll put it in the chat. It doesn't really make sense for me to put the whole link up on the screen because it's not like a hyperlink or anything. Right. So I'll put it right in the chat, everyone, in the comments section.
That's perfectly fine.
If you want to contact Artie. All right, so there it is. Should be in the comments section. There's the link. All right, so awesome. So the topic tonight is on the issue of the sovereign citizens. Exciting topic. I learned some new things today in my research as well. So I'm here to learn as well. Okay, but I do have a particular what they call belief. Okay, I say no. But I do have a particular stance on things, and I do come from the aspect of maybe everything is not as it seems. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that can come off a bit, conspiracy theory or what have you. Okay. All right. I can accept that that's fair. All right. But I'm an avid researcher. Okay. And that's where the platform I'm coming from. Okay, no disrespect intended. In fact, there will not be any disrespect. He is a professional. I count myself as a professional in this, but I'm honorable in all that I do. So when I'm wrong, I will admit I'm wrong, and I'm sure Artie is the same way. So we want to do this, more than just this one time. So we want
Mm-hmm.
to make sure everything's amicable and friendly. Okay,
Sure.
all right, absolutely. Okay, Artie, I am going to is it okay to let you start off with whatever? How much time do you think? Maybe 10, 15 minutes?
Well, I mean, sure. I can defer to you if you want to start off. And I have already have my evidence and documentation and my own statement I want to make. Um, specify, you want to talk specifically about the origins of this term or the ideology in general, or both. Like,
A little bit of both.
okay.
A little bit of both. If you have some history on it, because you probably know more than I do, in fact. So as far as the history, I didn't even get time, but I was going to actually look who was the first one that actually even coined that term. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you can give us some background.
Well, from based on my own research, at least in terms of the first time it's been used in federal court, and this is based off of Lexis Advanced Research. The first time it's been used in court, at least in the United States, was in Ex parte Hickey, 12 Mississippi 751, in July. That was by the Supreme Court of Mississippi in 1840. And in that respect, let me see if I got the link here. I apologize.
No problem. Take your time, man. Yeah. I told them that you just came in from work, so take your time. All right,
There
so
we
that was
go.
1840.
Yes.
You said okay.
This was in reference to I think it was a contempt of court issue,
Okay.
and the court kind of went into kind of like the origins of our common law in the United States, and referencing the common law of England, and the full sentence by which it is used. It is let me see if it's a good way. For in this country there is no majesty save the majesty of the law, and the office of that majesty is to guarantee to the sovereign citizen his constitutional liberties. So that's where they were trying to distinguish between the king or queen as the sovereign versus the sovereignty of the citizens, which is the foundation of our republic. The next case in which the term was used was in Dempsey versus Stout. That was the Supreme Court of Nebraska, March 22nd, 1906.
Okay.
That one was in reference to them striking down a law. I think it was banning the sale of tobacco and cigarettes. The court struck that down. They believe that the law was inhibiting upon the rights of the sovereign citizens to partake in whatever vices that they wished. This was back in 1906.
Okay.
The more, I think, the one that's, I think, of the most important and one of biggest import in my opinion, before we get to what I believe was the first time in which sovereign citizen was used in the context that many people understand to be today.
Okay.
This one is the more important one in my opinion, in that this one is called the Chicago versus Tribune Company, 307 ILL. 595, the Supreme Court of Illinois, 1923. And in there,
Chicago versus Tribune.
Chicago versus Tribune, yes, company.
Okay.
Now,
All right.
this one, and I want to go here and a more important paragraph here that I think will be relevant to our discussion. It's very short, and I apologize. It'd be very quick.
No, you're good.
The government, end quote, the government consists of associated persons representing the sovereign who make, interpret, enforce the laws. The American system of government is founded upon the fundamental principle that the citizen is the fountain of all authority. Under our system, this sovereign citizen has conferred certain authority upon his servants, officers of the law commissioned for a fixed time to discharge specific duties. In order to serve their needs, the citizens of Illinois, acting through the state government erected by them, have authorized the organization of city governments. The persons living within these corporate limits of these cities select officers who constitute the city government. The activities of these governments are limited by the needs of the people. All organized governments own and operate more or less property, and certain proprietary rights have long been recognized as necessary for the welfare of the inhabitants of the municipality. Now, the first instance in which, and also the first instance in which the term sovereign citizen is used in reference to, say, somebody who wants to avoid paying taxes, for one example, is Johnson versus Commissioner, 1978 Tax Court Memo, Lexus 482.
Johnson versus
Commissioner.
Okay.
Tax Court Memo, Lexus 482, but the docket number, if you don't have access to Lexus, is docket number 7306-76.
Okay.
And where did he have that? He made several arguments to say that he does not, because the respondent tax IRS said that he had a deficiency of $724 for federal income tax for the year of 1974. He challenged that, arguing that the deficiency was that the federal income tax was unconstitutional. The determination of the deficiency was a bill of attainder, but was also arbitrary in violation of her First Amendment right to petition the government, her Fourth Amendment right to be free of unreasonable search and seizures, her Fifth Amendment Fifth Amendment due process rights. Violated her right of self-incrimination and her right to counsel and to a jury trial, and also that it was violating of the 13th Amendment against involuntary servitude.
Mm-hmm.
But the court says this: according to the petitioner, the framers of the 16th Amendment envisioned an indirect excise tax on corporations, such as that contained in the Tariff Act of 1909. Since petitioner is a, quote, individual sovereign citizen, end quote, and the federal income tax is a direct progressive tax, she claims not to be subject to the tax. So, in other words, the court is quoting the litigant self-describing themselves as a, quote, individual sovereign citizen. And there are multiple additional inferences in that. There are federal other tax cases, Johnson versus, other than Johnson versus Wyckoff versus Commissioner, but also, and this will be the last one. This will be the last one for us.
No, you're good.
Is State versus Koba. That is State versus Koba, KOUBA, 319 NW 2D 161. This was from the Supreme Court of North Dakota in 1982, in which this individual was found guilty of driving while his license was under suspension. He argued that he had a constitutional driver's license, and which then said that the court quotes the driver's license reading as follows: constitutional driver's license. I, being a sovereign citizen of the United States of America, do hereby, by this document, license myself to operate a motor vehicle or other mechanical device on or off the public highways, roads, or right-of-ways anywhere in these states, and to continue to exercise the privilege of this right, as long as in so doing I do not infringe upon the life, liberty, or property of another person, or endanger the health, morals, and safety of society, end quote. So the reason I put that there is because a lot of what, and to close out my argument, is a lot of what I get whenever I talked with individuals who I would term as a sovereign citizen based upon their legal arguments. They say you can't, there's no such thing as a sovereign citizen because the two words are, are an oxymoron. Further, right. They also say that it was like a term coined by the government to disparage anybody who has the same sort of ideology, or who brings forth the same type of arguments. I bring this to demonstrate that it wasn't the government who coined the term sovereign citizen. It was these individuals' predecessors who described themselves as a sovereign citizen, likely due to the court, some of these court cases describing these sovereign citizens, because the court uses defined sovereign citizen as opposed to a sovereign king or a sovereign queen. They say a sovereign citizen as one of the people of the United States because that's where the sovereignty lies. And so therefore that's where the court comes from, and that's where these predecessors got the phrase sovereign citizen, because they're the ones who coined it. So oftentimes when I talk to people today about this, they get huffy about the terminology sovereign citizen. I'll ask them, look, don't look at me. I wasn't the one who coined it, and it wasn't the feds who coined it too. It's y'all's predecessors who did. So that's my opening argument.
Oh, very good. Thank you for that. And can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
A couple questions. Okay, so as far as the term sovereign citizen, I just want to make sure that I understand where you're coming from or what you said. You said that it was the predecessors that came up with this term, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who are you referring to when you say the predecessor, or who are they referring to when they say the predecessors?
Well, what I mean by predecessors, I usually mean by the posse comitatus / tax protester movement that was that made several types of tax protest arguments in the 50s and 60s. They heavily relied upon these actions for tax protests, to avoid paying income taxes. But then they branched off into making these more general constitutional arguments or jurisdictional arguments therein. That's what I mean by predecessors.
Oh, thank you very much for clearing that up. Okay, so just to be clear, just so everybody, I'm seeing where you're at with that. Okay, so it's not again the government that came up with the term sovereign citizen, or even put that label on these particular tax. You said, what did you use the term?
Tax protesters.
Protesters, or people basically who are giving the appearance that they don't believe that any government should regulate them and what have you.
Right.
And they use the Constitution to
they use for me, as I would define it, I define a sovereign citizen as an individual who uses, what I consider to be pseudo legal arguments and justifications to assert that a particular or any federal, local, state law does not apply to them.
Okay.
Due to some sort of special circumstance, or their current, or their status, I should say.
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you for clearing that up. All right, so as far as the terminology, I'll pull up my little. Let's see where you're at. I'm not really proficient in this PowerPoint here, but please be patient with me here. I'll try. I'll give it a try. All right, so let's go right here. I'm going to put this over here. Let's see if I can get this here. Share screen. I need 3 screens. I got 2. I need 3. All right, so share screen here. Let's see if this will work. If you can see that, let me know, please. I think you can there. If you in the audience cannot see, let me know so that I can make it larger for you so that you can see, okay?
You can see.
Artie, you can see it, Artie?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to bring context to this, okay? By playing this particular video, it's from Vice News story. I do not own the rights to it. This is Vice News, just so that you know, okay? Mm-hmm. But I wanted to play this. This will give Artie a chance to take a swallow of some water. We'll all get some context from it, and then we'll move forward from there, okay? Is that okay, Artie?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, awesome. See if I can get that to work here.
It's not. I mean, if it's video, we might have to be careful that you don't get copyright strike, but we'll see what happens.
Even for a news outlet?
Even for a news outlet, I can say that
Really?
from personal experience. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that. I thought news was public. I thought you can. No.
I mean, it'll depend on whether or not Vice News will, take the action. But I mean, we can if it's only a minute and a half, a minute 15. I think we'll be fine. It shouldn't have an issue. Oh, it's 14 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, what's the worst that happened? They'll just pull the whole video.
20,000 pages on the big printer.
Yeah, but that'll be fine.
Probably 2,000 documents. Everything's got a box around it because they're not part of the document. So it goes to the four-corner rule with parentheses or quotes or anything in grammar. Four-corner rule is if you have it in brackets, it's not part of the document.
You kind of lost me, Tim. I'm going to be honest.
Really?
Well, a little bit, yeah.
I thought you were like an English major or something.
I am an English major, but I here's why. The parentheses are part of a document.
Well, not in this part because it's a full box.
Tim Colburn is going to court to revoke his U.S. citizenship. He hopes it can help get his daughter back.
What are all of the things that you believe the government has taken away from you?
They took away my liberty. They took away my freedom to choose where I want to live, and to choose what I want to do for a job. They took away my right to parent my child.
When he was 21 years old, Colburn was charged with having sex with a 14-year-old. He didn't know her age at the time.
You believe you're innocent.
I know, I absolutely am.
But Colburn pled guilty in exchange for lifetime probation. Eventually, he started to resent and disobey the terms. No internet, no leaving town without permission, registering as a sex offender.
If I followed every single one of probation's restrictions, you would not be able to be a functional member of society.
His latest probation violation, repeatedly being in a room alone with a minor, in this case, his newborn daughter.
I just wanted to be a dad.
When the Arizona Department of Family Services opened an investigation, Colburn and his wife, Annie, went on the run.
Every time you drive by an empty or abandoned mall, start visualizing King Kong-sized dollar signs. As out of the ashes of all these mall closures, a truly unprecedented opportunity is rising up, offering you the chance to start a simple passive income business that allows you to be free.
Then in December, with the help of a SWAT team, the department removed the baby and placed her in foster care.
There was no neglect in any way, shape, or form. That baby was so happy.
Desperate and fed up, Colburn and his wife are going on the offense. They're turning to radical strategies that challenge government authority.
I'm going to personally sue judges. So the one that's holding our daughter hostage, basically, he's upholding a case of fraud. I can go after his cars. I can take everything.
This is a very aggressive strategy to take against someone who has a lot of power over your case.
Of course. It's the only one that will scare people enough to not screw with you.
Adherents go by many names: American nationals, freemen. Everyone else calls them sovereign citizens.
Sovereign is one's own government for oneself. Instead of being a U.S. citizen, I'm going to be an American national. And it's going to have limited diplomatic immunity.
Just about any lawyer would disagree with that premise. So Tim is going to court to fire his lawyer.
They're going to adopt my daughter out if I don't move forward. So I have to move forward today. And I don't need advisory counsel. I do not want advisory counsel. I'm very capable of representing myself.
But Colburn does have a less conventional advisor, David Strait, an Oregon rancher who teaches sovereignty with a QAnon.
You're familiar, huh?
Oh, this guy.
Between 55 and 60 children every month that were taken by CPS disappear out of the state records. Who removes the record? Attorneys and judges. Trafficking children.
The result is a mega conspiracy that Child Protective Services is abducting children to sell them abroad.
How many people have had problems with the courts in here? All of you. That's why you're here.
Colburn has paid Straight $6,000 so far for legal services.
$6,000.
This seminar, which he helped organize. We're the first media outlet to ever film at one.
So let's say two people want to go and own a property, but they don't have the money for that property. So
all right, with that, I'm gonna, since at your advice there, I'm gonna cut it short. So hopefully we don't have to worry about too much. But I just wanted everybody to kind of get context on the idea of the sovereign citizen, how the general populace. Would you agree with this, Artie? This is pretty much what the general populace, how they see people who are cast as sovereign citizen.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let me just do a couple slides here. I wanted to define, can everybody see that? It looks kind of small, but hopefully you can see that. I wanted to kind of define, okay, because as even Artie said about the oxymoronic value of the two words put together, I like to break words down etymology-wise and know what I'm dealing with, the context. So what is a sovereign, okay? Mm-hmm. I go to etymology dictionary online to kind of go, find out where the word came from. A superior ruler, master. But more importantly, what I always tell people is to make sure that you know the part of speech that you're dealing with before you even look up the word, so that you could have it in its proper context. So it's a sovereign citizen, which is a descriptor, an adjective of what kind of a citizen. It's a sovereign citizen. So we got to go down here to adjective. All right, so this is essentially what a sovereign is: a great, superior, supreme, right? Highest, supreme, chief. What else? Chief, principal. From the Latin super or over. Okay, so you get what they're denoting here. Potent and high degree. Okay, and as Artie said himself, the king was the sovereign, correct, Artie?
Yeah. Again, in the context of the court case that I was referring to, the court was trying to, distinguish between the sovereignty of the king, a king of England, with the sovereignty of the people, the citizenry.
Yep, I do agree. I do. Okay, so secondly, hey, get out of there. Where are you at? Okay, so what is a citizen then? Okay, because this is going to be more along my argument on my side, but I just want to lay down some context here this first go around. All right, so what is a citizen? This is the Law Dictionary, Black's Law, 2nd edition. Okay, nothing super special, nothing complicated. What is a citizen? It says, in general, a member of a free society or jural society. I want to focus on the term member, okay, as in a membership, a Sam's Club membership, whatever kind of membership you have around your area, possessing all the rights and privileges, okay, rights and privileges, which can being the operative term, can be enjoyed by any person, okay, another key term, under, all right, that's what is that, preposition, right? It's descriptive of a certain locale, a proximity or location, under its constitution, okay, and government. And they're not done yet. And a citizen, look, subject to the corresponding duties. So that, I believe that would be called a sort of a quid pro quo, okay, or some type of an agreement. And we're going to talk about that agreement, that social compact agreement. It's a contract.
Well, I mean, yes, we call it a social contract, but I would disagree if you're going to try and say that it's a literal contract.
It actually is an implied agreement. That's actually what a social compact is by definition. I will go there. Okay, just one moment. All right, so again, just highlighting member, person, under, as in the proximity, under its constitution. So they're talking about what? The jural society, correct? The civitas? Okay, so that citizen, once again, is a member underneath the constitution of a particular or of that jural society. Okay? Moving forward. Person. What is a person? We are at the legal dictionary once again. And here's their definition. Not mine, theirs. In general, usage, a human being. So in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
By statute, however, and we're going to go into what a statute is. The term can include firms, labor organizations, partnerships, associations, corporations, legal representatives, legal being the operative word, trustees in bankruptcy or receivers.
Right.
Artie, would you agree?
Yes, I agree that by statute, the term person would be a human being, as well as firms, labor organizations, partnerships, associations, etc.
Okay. And I do understand what you just said. However, the only problem is verbatim what they're saying.
No, but you're right. I'm saying by verbatim, I'm saying in general usage, a human being, right? And by statute, however, the term can include. So in addition to human being, it can include firms, labor organizations, partnerships, associations, corporations, etc.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll go with that. But just looking at the word without reading deeper into it, they make the distinction. I don't.
Well, you're trying to make I think you're trying to imply that under a statute, a person only means firms, labor organizations, partnerships, and does not include human beings. Is that what you're trying to imply by this definition?
Yeah, matter of fact, that I am. Yes.
Okay. I don't know where you're getting that, but from what we're looking at, but that's fine. We're gonna have to disagree there.
Oh, no problem. So let's see. How should I do this? Because I could go to where I get that evidence from, but I didn't want to go too deep in right now. I just wanted to hit the points. Please write down those. Would you do me that favor? Write down where you disagree at, and then bring those up to me on the next cycle, on your cycle. Okay. So we can keep, kind of keep the debate going and flowing. Would you do that for me, Artie?
Sure.
Okay, that way I can go back and prove that point. Okay, so moving on. Now, when we're looking at citizen once again, it mentioned a type of society, and I'll take a couple more minutes and I'll pass it back to you. I want to highlight here. Oh man, what are you doing? I want to highlight right here. This is going to be key to my argument. Jural society. Because the membership is of the jural society. Okay, watch this. What does jural suggest, or what does it mean? Right here, Black's Law Dictionary, 2nd edition. Not my words, theirs. Jural. Oh, come on, all these pop-ups. Pertaining to natural or positive right, or to the doctrines of rights and obligations. We know that that's consistent because they talked about the obligation of a citizen. They're obligated, okay? As jural relations. Okay, watch this. Number 2, of or pertaining to jurisprudence. We know that. Juristic, juridical, right? Recognized or sanctioned by positive law. Okay, that's going to be key. Embraced within or covered by the rules and enactments of positive law. Thus, the jural sphere is to be distinguished from the moral sphere. So we have a distinction, and we have to pay close attention to that. They're going to tell you here the latter, which is the moral sphere, distinct from the jural sphere, denotes the whole scope or range of ethics. This is the moral sphere, okay? Or the science of of conduct. The former being the jural sphere, embracing only such portions of the same as have been made the subject of, key term, legal sanction or recognition. And lastly, number 4, this is jural, founded in law. I love prepositions. You have to pay attention to it because it's telling you where it resides. Jural is founded in law. This water is inside of this glass, but it is not this glass. Moving on. Organized, see, it's organized. Juror is organized upon, another preposition, the basis of a fundamental law. So there's law, and then the juror is founded in it and upon it. So that means it pre-existed it. I'm going to prove that to you too. Thus, the term, here's the kicker, jural society, which is what we just saw in the definition of a citizen, a member of a jural society, is used as the synonym of state. I want you to remember that. Hold on to that tight. Or organized political community. All right. And lastly, and then I'm going to pass it off to you, Artie. Thank you for your patience. Is positive law, because they mentioned it there in that definition. What is positive law? We're going to take you right to the U.S. House of Representatives website themselves. They're going to tell you themselves, the Office of the Law Revision Council. What is positive law? We're going to go down to the second paragraph here. Look what it says. In general, there's that phraseology again. In general, the term, what is a term? We're going to go there. Positive law connotes what? Statutes. I.e., that is to say, that's what I.e. means, law that has been enacted by a duly authorized legislature. As used in this sense, positive law is what? There's that word again, distinguished or distinguishable from natural law. Remember, it said that the jural sphere is distinct and distinguished or distinguishable from the moral sphere. This is exactly the same, and you're going to see it. Watch this. The term, there's that word again, natural law, especially as used generally in legal philosophy, refers to a set of universal principles. What does universal mean? Does not universal mean applies to all? Universal principles and rules that properly govern moral human conduct. Watch this. Unlike a statute, natural law is not created by human beings. Wait a minute. So if natural law is distinguishable from positive law, and positive law is created by the legislature, but natural law is not created by the legislature, but is natural, and it goes on to say it's not created by human beings, but look, rather natural law is thought to be pre-existing law of nature, which human beings can. There's a qualifier there. You can. Remember, we just qualified that before? You did that, Artie? Human beings can, and they emphasize discover through their capacity for rational analysis. They have to have a capacity, and that capacity has to be within rational analysis. If they don't have it, then they cannot discover what is known as natural law.
Right.
All right.
You would agree with the founders would do. The founders would say that they discovered a lot of the rights that are codified under the Constitution as natural rights. That's what they say. They didn't make up those certain rights that are enumerated in the Constitution. They simply discovered them, and put them on paper. Right. I mean, I don't disagree with that.
Okay. So the points that you did disagree with, feel free to bring those up now, and then I can address those. And I will do the same to you. Well, you'll get your chance, and then I'll do the same to you.
Well, I mean, in most respects, in any other state legislature's definition of person, in most of the relevant aspects of it, a person, they would define it as including a human being or a natural person, which under a Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition that I have here, person, it says, quote, in general usage, a human being, person is, quote, in general usage, a human being, i.e. natural person, though by statute term may include a firm, labor organizations, partnerships, associations, corporations, legal representative trustees, bankruptcies, or receivers. And it's citing the National Labor Relations Act, section 221. They also have other examples like the Bankruptcy Act, where it says person includes individual, partnership, and corporation, but not a governmental unit, section 101. Part 30. So in that respect, person is in statute and in various statutes, both federal and state, person as defined is always going to include natural person, no matter where you're going to find it. It's just the matter of whether or not that the statute's going to also include an entity such as a corporation or association along with natural person. So in any aspect of where you're going to look at what the definition of a person is, the fact that it also includes a corporation does not mean that natural person is no longer a part of that definition. So that's where we're going to have to disagree there. And you can look at that at any state, virtually any state law that defines person in their statutes. The other part that I would say I'm going to disagree with is, well, I mean, I can't necessarily say I disagree. Go ahead.
Do you want me to address that contention right there, or just take it all first and then?
I mean, I have one other major disagreement, but you can respond to that.
Okay. All right. So I like to let the fingers do the talking. Let's go to the Black's Law Dictionary. This is where I got it from, so it definitely is not something, my conjecture, or something that I just came up with off my own. All right, so we're going to go, I'll show you where it's at here. This is Bouvier, I believe, 1856. Give me one moment, I'll pull it up.
I mean, is there a reason why you use a dictionary from 150 years ago?
Just because obviously those people knew at the foundation of certain parts or the procedures and substantive issues that they raised, the common laws and all that kind of stuff. They're the ones that defined all this stuff that we're now dealing with today, even though it has graduated.
But don't words change their meaning over time?
Yeah, but the etymology of words, you can look back and see what the original meaning of it, of the word was, right? The original time.
Well, I would say you can look back. We can all look back all day at the etymology of certain words and be fascinated by their origins, but that doesn't mean that their original meaning at the time would have the same meaning in today's context. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I would, and I absolutely do agree with you. And a part of my issue is that I'm isolating those who have taken the occasion to change the meaning of words and the values of words, and for their own nefarious activities. So
okay, so you're implying a nefarious activity by those who change certain meanings of words.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And even, I don't know if you're familiar with the scripture. Most people are. But even the scripture says that particular people would change the times, the days, the meaning of words, attorning words, and we'll go there. But I don't want to.
I mean, we don't even know to go to the Bible. We can go to 1984 if we want to talk about the change of a meaning of words. But I'm only referring to the general aspect of common human language, since all words are ultimately made up. And I don't think there's any definition, any word out there that has had its definition remain constant throughout its inception, unless it's a very recent term.
Well, what about murder?
What kind of murder? First degree, second degree, murder, depraved heart.
Wait. Well, see, I'm not talking about degrees. I'm talking about the word murder. Period.
Yeah, murder can mean a lot of different things depending on the state you're in.
Well, I mean, I think now the dialect or the particular tongue language, okay, it might not sound what I'm saying when I say murder here in the West, but over in let's say Asia, they speak a different language. But if they could, in other words, if they were trying to describe a certain event where someone inflicted grave harm on someone to the point of a fatality to take to someone's life, I think they would agree. There's a term to, describe that.
Well, I mean, the common law definition of murder is the unlawful killing of another with malice aforethought. Right. So that's the common law definition. However, many states don't use the common law definition to describe murder anymore. They have specific definitions of what murder is that can describe the same act, but may have distinctions depending on the context of in which the act was committed. So that's why I'm saying to you that murder is I'm going to actually ask you for clarification on what murder is defined. Many of us can always say, yeah, murder is like somebody who unlawfully kills somebody, because homicide is not the same murder. All murders are homicides, but not all homicides are murders, because homicide involves the killing of another human being, but it may not be murder because it may be that the homicide was justified based upon certain context. So
without going into the weeds, I think we should just put generally on there, because most people, when you say somebody was murdered, generally understand what you're trying to say. Would you agree with that? Generally?
Say that again.
I said most people, when we say generally, I think that's why that term is used. Generally, okay? When you say murder, most people know what you're implying. Without going into the weeds as far as legalities and definition or defining it by degree or whatever, how serious it was, that would be irrelevant for our intents and purpose for here, okay? You agree?
I mean, we could say that if you're wanting to say that there's a general understanding of what murder means in a layman's context, then sure.
Okay, thank you. Just for the sake of argument and moving on. All right, so let's get back to person, okay? So this is, again, Black's Law Dictionary, and fair enough, I hear and understand what you are saying as far as why am I using something from 100-something years ago. And that's the best answer I have, is that, in fact, we refer to history. I mean, why do they have museums? So that you can refer back to history, so you can learn a little something perhaps about yourself and your culture. So we do this all the time. It's not unusual. But here's the thing. Here's the point. Person. This word is applied to men, women, and children who are called natural persons. You agree? I'm sure you do, because you did say so. All right. So, but look, there's always a qualifier. In law, man and person are not exactly synonymous terms. Simple, right? They're not synonymous terms. Any human being is a man, whether he be a member of society or not. Okay? There's that society again, a member. Membership, it's key, it's important. Society, jural society, which is a state. Whatever may be the rank he holds, or whatever may be his age, or even sex. Did you hear that? A human being is a man, whether he be of a member of a society or a citizen, that's what a member of the society is, or not, or whatever may be the rank he holds, or whatever may be his age. It don't matter how old he is. He's a human being, is a man. All right. And sex. So it says, even if it does not make a distinction between sex, still considered a man. A human is a man. All right, so a person is a man considered according to the rank he holds in society. So in other words, listen what it says. A person is a man considered according to the rank he holds. So you got to have a particular rank in the citizenship or the jural society for a person to be considered a man. Watch this. And
okay.
the duties.
I mean, again, we are also talking about a dictionary from 1857 when slavery was still active and legal in the United States. I mean,
right. So
just as you say, we need to look back. We also need to look back at the surrounding context in which we are looking at these terms.
Agreed. Absolutely agree 100%. And we should make those allowances for what's going on today. I'm going to actually deal with that. Okay. So look right here. Person also, look, it is also used to denote a corporation. So there you go. Artie, you're correct. We're both agreeing on that. Sometimes it could imply a man or a human, a person. And sometimes it could denote a corporation, which is an artificial person.
Right. That's distinguished between natural person, which is a human being, and an artificial person, which would be an association, corporation, etc.
I almost agree, but a natural person is not necessarily a human being, and I can show you. Okay.
I already showed you with my definition.
Okay, no problem. Let me keep going. Look, but number 3, but when the word persons is spoken of where? In legislative acts, natural persons will be intended.
Mm-hmm.
Unless something appear in the context to show that it applies to artificial persons.
Right.
So they're making a distinction between natural persons and artificial persons.
Right. So it says, based on that, it says persons will be spoken of in legislative acts. Natural persons will be intended unless something appear in the context. Therefore,
Yes.
as for example, when they define person as being a natural person, but also includes corporation, association, etc., or that it says a person would, for the purposes of this chapter, person includes a business association, corporation, etc. I think I think where we're going to ultimately have a fundamental disagreement is this idea that when the legislature references a person, it's not implied already that it's including a natural person within its definition.
Okay, let me finish what I'm saying. Now, if you recall, up here, when does a person become considered a man?
Look,
you want to say
he's any human being is a man. Okay, yeah.
No. Look, a person
is
a man considered according to the rank he holds in society.
Okay, and again,
No,
I
listen.
emphasize to you that this is from Bouvier's Law Dictionary from 1857, back when there were certain stations of society where men were held in chattel servitude. And that may be what they're referring to in terms of their rank in society. Right, I'm telling you, according to my 5th edition Black's Law Dictionary, which was interpreted in 1956, this sort of human being aspect is not included in the definition anymore. So I don't know why you're referring to this definition, because currently, as it currently stands now, personhood and person and man is not contingent upon their societal status.
Okay. All right. So, but let's just, for the sake of argument, for the sake of this debate, let's just, okay, if this was 100 years ago, let's just get this out. Let's wrap our minds around this just for the moment, because this is my answer to your basically saying we disagree. So let's just take it, okay, one step at a time here. All right. First of all, it says, this old ancient book, right, his law dictionary that I've heard judges use, by the way, so says that when persons is used in legislative acts. Now, isn't that funny, though, that we just read jural, natural, and positive law by their own codification, and it says that legislative acts are distinguished from that of natural law, which only human beings can discover. Isn't that funny that this is supposedly and allegedly outdated, as you're saying? However, it's speaking the same terminologies and languages that the U.S. House of Representatives has live right now on their website. Isn't that funny? So when it says, it tells you, in accordance with that U.S. House of Representatives, it tells you when a person becomes a man. And that is determined by the rank that that man or that person has in a particular society. And I'm going to tell you how that works. I'm going to show you. But first, I'm going to shut my mouth and allow Artie to speak his piece.
I still maintain that any discussion of what a law dictionary from 1857 defines person is irrelevant, considering that in 1857, the concept of chattel slavery of human beings was still valid. And I expect that a law dictionary is going to make a distinction as such. Because I know that you had mentioned in one of your other videos, you referenced the Dred Scott decision for some reason, because even though Dred Scott was overruled by the 14th Amendment, but we can have that discussion another time. That's why I'm looking at your reference to Bouvier's Law Dictionary as a waste of time, because it is an outdated law dictionary that has no significant application in a modern context.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Do the courts use the Bouvier?
I have yet to see them use Bouvier in my understanding. I've always seen them use Black's Law and Black's Law of 8th edition or recent.
Okay. So
excuse me, not just Black's Law, but I've also seen a decision where they used a non-legal dictionary. They used Webster's.
Yep. And so that kind of goes to my point. Okay, when they're trying to establish precedent, well, you know this. When they're trying to establish precedent, you know that. In fact, what was your second? I don't want to go too fast. I'm gonna read this comment here. The consultant says a person is merely the name a man uses, a vessel used to operate in commerce. I'm gonna just drop this help here. What do you have to say about that, Artie?
A person is merely the name man uses, a vessel is used to operate in commerce. I don't know what the hell that means in the sense of because a person's definition is not contingent upon whether or not its application is within commerce or not. A person is going to be defined as such it's going to be only distinguished by its own definition as to whether it's going to include government entities, foreign governments I remember seeing, or other applications. That's the only time I've ever seen person has its definition altered, is whether or not it's going to include more than just natural person. So I don't know where he's getting this idea that commerce has any application as to whether or not the usage of person is significant. Okay.
So in fact, what was the second contentious point? We don't need to belabor that much longer.
Gosh, I had it written down. You mentioned you had Jural Society. Well, I think the other major thing that we had a disagreement with was your idea that that the Constitution or citizenship is some sort of equivalent to a membership like Sam's Club. I don't consider it to be that. I've never had a birthright citizenship for Costco. That's never happened to me before. Even though I like to visit there, and I do have a membership there. Right. The idea is that under the United States Constitution, citizenship is birthright. It is you are entitled to citizenship by nature of your birth within the United States, with the exception being the American Samoa and Swains Island, where you are by birth a non-citizen U.S. national. And so birthright citizenship is given to you, it's granted to you, and it's not something that is actively acquired by virtue of signing a document. It's based purely upon your birth within a geographic delineated boundary, or by virtue of your parents' citizenship. So I don't consider citizenship to be the equivalent of a membership in a private club.
Okay, fair enough. Can I address that, or are you still
sure
going? Okay, all right.
Real quick, just to clarify with one of my viewers,
absolutely.
DGen, Puerto Rico is a unique situation in which birthright citizenship is granted through an act of the legislature. It's not granted through the 14th Amendment. In other words, Puerto Rico's birthright citizenship is something that can actually be taken away by legislation, in contrast with the 50 states. So that I just want to make that clarification. All right.
Okay. All right. Let me pull up now. Your contention once again is that my usage of terminology like membership in a jural society, you're saying that is incorrect. It's not like a membership to Sam's Club.
It's not a membership to Sam's Club in which you can simply say, I don't want to tell them I don't want to be a member anymore, and yet still think that you can shop in Costco, which I feel like a lot of what sovereign citizens like to do is they like to say, I don't want to be a citizen anymore, and then still think that they can still enjoy the rights and privileges of being within the contiguous United States. And
yes,
that's not how that works. You know,
I
that's what I'm going to say.
100% agree. I 100% agree. I am with you. I am with you on that, Artie. I do not believe that you take the cake and you think that you can jump in and out whenever you want to. I 100% agree with you. Let me just put this up here for to deal with that particular portion there. Share screen here. I'll get better at these buttons. Give me. All right. So sharing screen now. This is the Black's Law 5th edition. This is their definition. Black's Law 5th edition. You said you used it yourself. Mm-hmm. Definition of citizen. Okay. So it says one who, preposition, under, all right, the Constitution and laws of the United States. Okay. Or of a particular state. What is a state? Synonymous with jural society. That is distinct, if you recall, from natural law. They are not one.
Right. United States, federal, or a particular state, such as Georgia, Texas, New Jersey.
Yeah. But again, the point I was trying to make is that there's the jural societies, okay, which are states, okay? And on the opposite side of that, distinguished from the natural law, which is pre-existing to the acts of the legislature and positive laws. Okay, that's what we just read, and the House of Representatives said it themselves. I didn't say that. Okay, so I just want to remember that. Now,
they also mentioned that natural law is usually discussed in a philosophical context and not in an actual legal context.
Well, they said that about positive law too.
Right.
Okay, so that's, I mean, that pretty much cancels out. But we do recognize that there is the moral sphere and natural law, right? It does
right. Well,
exist.
but I think I can agree with you that there is a distinction between natural law and what we consider positive law. The ultimate, I think the issue is the ultimate substance of the point is whether or not, an individual who is here is still subject to the positive law, regardless of whether they want to say they only want to be part of the natural law. I don't see. I consider that to be. I think a lot of people, and I think based on I didn't get to see a lot of what your channel was, but based on how I understand what you're getting at, is that you only talk about I only reference natural law. I'm only a part of natural law as a natural man sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Suggesting that any sort of statutory law is not going to be applicable to you. And I think that's going to be the fundamental disagreement we're going to have here.
Yeah, no, I agreed with you before, and I'm agreeing with you now. You have to make a choice and a decision. You cannot take the cake and the privileges and the immunities and think that you can, when you don't like it, like, a baby or a child, when mom's good to you, you're all up underneath mom. But when mom tells you it's time to go to bed, now you're running away, you're breaking rules and statutes and codes that mom has enforced. I get it. I'm with that. I don't believe that anybody should be in Caesar's backyard and eating off his apple tree and not being prepared to pay the piper. Okay. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in trespassing, transgressing, excuse me. I don't believe in that. So I'm with you on that, Artie. I don't think we have a problem there. But let's go forward with this real fast. A citizen is a member. Okay? You notice we've been to several different places. Okay? Let every word be established in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, not just one. Okay? And so what I'm showing you here is that by Black's Law, now this is not outdated, correct?
Right.
Oh, okay.
So I agree. I agree that the 5th edition is sufficiently recent that I'm not going to have an issue with it.
Excellent. So, all right. So I'll try to stay with the Black's Law 5th. But anyways, the citizen is a member of the political community. we'll come back there, but let me go forward here. If I can, let me see here. I thought I had the other one. I need the next page. One moment. Where are you at? Oh, the predator. Oh, here we go. I went too far, I think. Let me see. Here. All right, here's the second part of it. Page 126 here of Black's Law 5th edition. Owing allegiance, okay, and being entitled to the enjoyment of full civil rights. All right? Now, there's a lot to unpack in there. First of all, a citizen is a member, and that member is under the Constitution and laws of the United States or of the state, okay? And the state is a jural society, and so the membership is within the jural society. Now, it said that jural is under positive law to be distinguished from natural law. Now, this particular member owes allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so because of the allegiance that is owed, they have become invested or entitled to the enjoyment of full civil rights. Now, you have to ask yourself a question, because we just defined natural law as opposed to positive law. Natural law as opposed to the acts of the legislature, which are statutes. Okay? Now, this particular involvement agreement, social compact with the state, the jural society, grants you something at your allegiance. And in fact, I'll show you where the United States itself says that when these particular people emigrated here, we received people from all over the United States claims. Okay, I'll show you that. And they said that when they got here and pledged their allegiance, that we invested them with rights, certain rights. So we see the name of those rights right here. They're civil rights. I have to ask a question. I'm going to pose this to you, Artie. Is there a difference between natural liberties and civil rights?
I think that they can be used interchangeably ultimately, because that's also another argument I often hear from sovereign citizens, that supposedly natural liberties are distinguished from civil rights, but I have yet to really see where they make this cogent argument that because they don't really provide examples, they kind of tend to provide distinctions without a difference, in my opinion.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Will you challenge me to provide that information for you?
Go for it.
Okay. Thank you for that. Let's go for that. Now, for this, to be fair, to qualify, I will be using Bouvier, 1856. Now, you can shoot it down if you want to, but I still want you to see it. Is that okay?
Go for it.
Okay. Thank you. Let's look at back here, back in 1856. To be fair, Artie says this is ancient, it's outdated. Why are you using it? It does not make sense. Fair enough. I accept that. I just still want to show you, okay, from the Bouvier. Okay, so here. Let's look at natural liberties as opposed to civil rights, and let's see what they had to say back then. And let's see if that even applies today. Because this is a discussion, again, about the persons again, right? They are also talking about persons divided into free persons and slaves. We know what those are, right? Free men are those who have preserved their natural liberty. Let's find out what natural liberties are. That is to say, who have the right of doing what is not forbidden by the law. That's what they had back then, 1856. It might not apply today according to Artie, but back then, they said the free men are the ones who have preserved their natural liberty. So that means that the slave, let's read about slave. A slave is one who is in the power. Remember that preposition? Where's the water? Inside of this bottle. But they are not one and the same. They are distinct and separate from each other. A slave is one who is in the power of a master. Does it say the master or white man? No, it does not. It says in the power of a master. So any master that endows their servant, slave, whatever, with power, in other words, that slave can go out into the community and say, in the name of my master, do this. That's what the type of power they're talking about. That's what a slave has to do in order to get something done. A slave is one who is in the power of a master to whom he belongs. So the difference being is that the slave has to exercise what are known as rights.
No, absolutely.
As a-
What? No, I'm sorry. No.
Wait.
A slave is one who is in the power of a master, meaning that they are under the dominion of a master. They're not granted power by the master.
Well,
are you actually conflating that a slave has rights, like civil rights, and that a free man has natural liberties? Is that the distinction you're trying to make here?
Well, first of all, I didn't make that distinction.
No. You are trying to draw that conclusion from the definition here.
No, I'm not. I don't want to draw any conclusion yet. I just want to read it.
You are drawing the conclusion here.
No, okay, let's just read it. You want to read it, or I'll read it? Which one?
I'm reading it right here. We're clearly reading we're clearly delineating two different things from the text of this definition.
Okay, why don't you read number 5 for me from Freeman?
What? Freemen are those who have preserved their natural liberty, that is to say, who have the right of doing what is not forbidden by law. In other words, they're not under any sort of servitude, except when the law of their governing jurisdiction says that they can't do that thing. Versus a slave who has zero say and zero autonomy. A slave is one who's in the power of a master to whom he belongs. He has no autonomy whatsoever. He can't do a goddamn thing unless a master says so. But
absolutely.
But where, in what facet are you saying that a slave has rights as opposed to natural liberties with a free man? Because you interjected rights into that conclusion.
Yeah, and I intend to prove it. But
okay.
I just wanted to let you go off on that for a moment, because I just want to deal with what it says verbatim first before I go into my conclusion. Okay, it's an issue. What are the two?
See, slaves are sometimes ranked not with persons but things.
Right.
But sometimes they are considered as persons. For example, a Negro is in contemplation of a law, a person, so as to be capable of committing a riot. So basically, what they're saying, like, a slave is nothing more than property. But if they incite a riot, then they'll be considered a person under the law, so we can prosecute them.
That's right.
Which again is an example of having their cake and eat it too, under the guise of the law. So,
right.
But you're gonna have to do a little bit more than just cite to a Bouvier's Law Dictionary to try and make the contention that me having civil rights is akin to me being a slave to the master of government, which I think is what you're trying to conclude here.
Not me. Okay, so
no, you. I'm sorry, but you cannot try and glean this definition. I'm just reading what's being said. You are drawing that conclusion based on this terminology, which again is about 150 years old. But I'll let you continue. Okay. I'll stop interrupting.
No problem. But the Black's Law, I appreciate the passion. Absolutely, I'm the same way. So the Black's Law 5th edition, though, you said that's not outdated, correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay, didn't it say that member of that political community is subject or under?
Yes, just like any other citizenship. Are you suggesting a subject is now a slave?
I mean, we don't have to use the term slave. We could just say subject.
So now you're equivocating subject with slave.
Well, usually a slave is subject, isn't it?
No.
No?
Me being subject to the laws of my local township does not make me a slave to my local township. How that is absurd in any context.
Right, but what I don't really want to go that severe as far as
well, that is the natural logical chain of events that you're making here. If you're trying to make that equivocation, do not try and backtrack. if you're saying I am subject to the laws of the state of New Jersey, you are effectively saying that I'm a slave to the state of New Jersey, meaning I have no ability to do a damn thing unless I initially get a say-so. I can't go to work unless I get a say-so. I can't drive my car unless I get a say-so. I can't do a damn thing unless I have a say-so.
Yeah, because Artie, you clearly, I'm sure you know that to drive a car, your argument would be, yes, you should be licensed. You should.
Yeah, but once I have my license, I don't need to let my local township know that I'm going to get groceries, do I?
Well, no,
well, but a slave has to have permission to even exit his master's property. I would expect, right?
Well, no,
I don't have to tell the government what I'm going to do every single moment of every single part of my life.
Well, okay. Let's
which is what a slave would have to do.
Let's dial it back a little bit. A slave, okay. Let's say to pick cotton. Let's say to clean chickens and all that kind of stuff. Do you think that the slave master stood there and watched them at every level of their labor?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't think he didn't have taskmasters hired to keep watch?
Absolutely. Slave masters, whipping them.
Just as we're going to make the same analogy, I don't have cops. I don't have to tell the local cops that I'm going to go out and get groceries. I don't need permission to leave my home.
Right, but if you get pulled over by a particular cop on your way,
okay,
they will demand a driver's license, won't they?
Yeah.
Okay, that means that at any given time, the master can check and see if you're valid.
No, they have to actually catch me violating a part of the traffic laws in order for them to stop me.
That's what we like to argue, but we know that there's many contexts today that that's not true, right? All right, so let me just get to some of these comments, Artie, and I hope, really, Artie, I hope that some of your people, I don't know if they have access here to be able to comment, but I would like to keep this fair. If they can come and comment, even if they want to pose something to me, please, let's do this, because I got people that want to say something to you, but I don't want to overload you and make it seem like it's stacked against you. I want your people, if they can comment, please feel free. So I'll put up a couple. I don't want to overload you. If you feel like I'm overloading and being unfair, please let me know, Artie, because that is not my intent. Okay.
Okay.
Artie. Okay. All right. So Wolf Robinson wants to ask, well, please do define what a subject is and sort your evidence, Artie.
Well, I would already say that the subject is already as defined as we've already talked about it. For example, a citizen is an individual who is has the rights and privileges of the political community, as you mentioned, but is also subject to, meaning that they are required or obligated to adhere to the laws, duly enacted laws of that political community. So being subject to a law may depend on certain contexts. It may depend on your physical location. It may also depend on other contexts, such as your work environment. Me being an attorney, I am subject to the rules of professional conduct for the state of New Jersey. You not, because you're not an attorney. Ain't
I though? No,
no, unless you got that license, or you're licensed. And that, I know a lot of people also say that I'm a member of the British Accredited Registry, etc. But we don't need to go into that. So that's where I'm saying subject meaning, I mean, it's pretty easy to, I mean, we don't even need to go to Black's Law. We can go to any Webster's dictionary and say that subject to means, as you said, underneath or within the boundaries thereof of a political community or a body of law, or, even we could go through other different hierarchies. When I was growing up as a kid, I was subject to the rules put in place by my parents.
Right. So therefore, you couldn't do what you wanted to do anytime you wanted to do it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So let me put the next question up here for you, Wolf. I appreciate you answering that. Let's see. Wolf Robinson says, yes, you are a slave and you have to ask to do the things you want to do. You
Do
already
I?
addressed that? Or...
I mean, I'm going on vacation in about a week and a half. I didn't need to ask government permission to do that. I'm to travel outside the United States. I didn't need permission to order food tonight from Uber Eats. I didn't need permission to get up and go to work in the morning. I don't need permission to decide that, you know what, I'm going to get groceries tomorrow and go to ShopRite. I do not have any obligation to do that. The fact that I need I have because here's the problem that you're having, people in the comments. You keep on saying, oh, well, you need permission to operate your vehicle. Sure, I do, because it's a 2-ton death machine that can kill somebody very easily. But you know what? I don't need permission. I don't need permission to walk to where I want to go. I don't need permission to leave the state of New Jersey and go to Pennsylvania if I want to. That's where that freedom of travel comes in. I can walk if I want to. I could take public transportation if I want to. I'm not being restricted in my choice of transportation. If I want to choose a particular mode of travel, there might be some requirements I have to do. But once I have that license, I don't need to tell government a damn thing about where I want to go.
So let me ask you a question then. I do understand where you're coming from. You said you can walk anywhere you want to. You don't need permission?
I can walk anywhere I want to, as in if I want to go to a grocery store, if I wanted to go to Pennsylvania, for example. Yeah, I don't need need to tell them, hey, I'm going out to go get groceries. I can just walk out my door and walk.
So what happens, I don't know where you're from, but where I'm from, if a police officer pulls me over on the side of the road and I'm walking and I don't have an ID, they take me into custody.
Well, I would say you probably could file some, you'd have a civil rights case against you for that reason. If they don't have any position to ID you. Well, I mean, there are some states that are still stopping ID. But I know New Jersey's not one of those states.
Okay, because that's a very real. It's a very real thing here, and in fact, they made it somewhat statutory where everybody has to have a state ID at least, or a driver's license, so that they can ID you. And you know how you might see on YouTube that the police are saying, "Well, I stopped you. I need to ID you to make sure you're not a criminal or did something wrong." So I know a lot of people out there, on both sides, have probably experienced that or know of someone that has experienced that. So,
I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying it's not something that something that doesn't happen. I'm saying that it's not appropriate. It's not lawful.
Okay. All right. So next question: how about Roe v. Wade, where the lawful woman sued and won, stating that she doesn't have to say in her national. Okay, the state had to prove what its interest was in the natural woman. Can you piece that together and answer that or not?
How about Roe v. Wade won and say that the state doesn't have it? The whole point of Roe v. Wade was that it was a law on preventing abortion. The Jane Roe sued, made the argument that she has bodily autonomy in what happens to her in what happens with her own body, and the court agreed that she has the bodily autonomy, and the state's interest in that was not sufficient to outweigh her liberty interest in her bodily autonomy, and that's what the court said. I don't know what he's referring to in the context of whether he agrees or disagrees, but I mean, that's a summation of what Roe v. Wade was about.
I think what he's trying to, I did a story or a lecture on this a little bit ago. And the context I took it from was that essentially, remember, the states were trying to overturn it, and they were talking about the state's interest and why they were trying to overturn this law that outlawed abortion. And they kept talking about the state's interest. And remember they had to have a compelling state interest. They had to prove that.
It's a strict scrutiny analysis, and so it's a higher standard of proof that the state has to demonstrate to outweigh the individual liberty interest. And so because it was a very high standard, the court said that the state could not, the law was the laws did not satisfy that very high burden.
Right. And so I guess to his point, what he's saying, and I appreciate that comment, he's saying that is an example of the distinction, as we made here at the U.S. House of Representatives and elsewhere, between what is natural law with natural liberties and what is positive law under the Jural Society that gives out what they said in Black's Law Dictionary here, civil rights. One is not the same. They are distinct from each other. And I do agree with you, Artie, that if you cannot rob the state, okay? If you take a benefit, any kind of benefit, welfare, whatever, from the government or the state, then, hey, you've essentially went into that backyard. So you owe a duty and obligation. And that presumption is...
I think where we're going to ultimately disagree, and to add on to that point, is the state's going to apply regardless of whether or not you take it a benefit. And I think that's where we're going to have a disagreement here.
Oh, I like that. Please write that one down. How much longer can you be with us, Artie?
I probably got another 20 minutes.
Excellent. I'll take that if you'll allow us. And then can we do a part 2?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Just let me know. I mean, if you change your mind, that's not a problem. Okay. So let me get through some of these, because we got a lot of people that wanted to chime in. Wolf Robinson said, and those laws are based on a corporate contract between the parties, which that social compact I talked about. You know what they're talking about with the social compact, right, Artie? I'm sure.
I'm understanding of the concept. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Let me see if I can. Okay. So somebody new here, TS Doc Holiday. A person can go wherever they want, and the government doesn't get to decide what work we do. A slave master did to his slaves and told his slaves what to do and beat them if they didn't. I think there's somebody arguing your point. Mark White gives a happy face. Let me see what else we got here. Right. That's why they say find something you love and you'll never work again. LOL, working for slaves, I guess. I'm not sure which. Okay. Wolf Robinson, and this is what I was going to ask. When you said that you can travel out of the country or state or whatever, do you need a pass? He said, do you not get a passport?
Well, a passport is something for the purposes of identification. It's not given to you for the purposes of travel.
All right. Fair enough. Mark White said you got to pay to go to vacation, so you ain't free. Here, Wolf Robinson said, did you not get a license to be at law?
Right. Because the court has already held that the practice of law is not, a fundamental liberty. And so the state has an interest in regulating the practice of law, just the same as, regulating a licensed practice as a medical doctor.
All right. Fair enough. Mark White says, you sound like the judge trying to convince me my right to travel is walking. All right.
Yeah.
Mark White, they're going to find out you went to the grocery store as soon as your
butt swiped that card. What so the usage of my debit card is the acknowledgement of permission? What?
All right.
I don't know.
No worries. You are entitled to the enjoyment of full civil liberties, in quotes, until you break their codes. Then, Lyndon Pope says, that is right practice at law. Oh, Wolf Robinson. And Lyndon Pope says, yes, national law versus jural law. The state had no right interest over the lawful woman when she stands in her natural law. What do you say to that?
I don't know if that person is referring to the Roe v. Wade. It's been a long time since I've read that decision, so I can't really say under what complete grounds that she made her case. I just know that the court held it under a strict scrutiny test, and that there had to be a compelling state interest. And as far as what the other one, the other person says, the Linden Post says you are entitled to the full enjoyment of their civil liberties until you break their codes. Well, I mean, I don't know if you've learned this, or I don't know if you know this, but no fundamental right is absolute. I mean, I feel like that should be something that's pretty basically understood, especially under the rights of the Constitution. There's no right listed in the Bill of Rights, which many of us and many of the founders considered to be what do I say? A codification, or the written understanding of certain natural rights. For example, life, liberty, and property. These they're not absolute, right? For example, the Fifth Amendment: no person can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, suggesting that those three things can be taken away from you, provided that you have appropriate due process. So that's why I often say to these folks, and why I often contend that regardless of whether you want to make a distinction between natural rights and civil rights, which there can be, I'm not going to necessarily dispute that. What matters is whether or not you are still going to be subject to to the limitations placed upon those natural law or statutory law or positive law. So that's, I think, where we're going to have this fundamental disagreement.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just going to go briefly over this last part of the fifth edition for the definition of citizen. And then after that, we need to close out by going back on topic for the sovereign citizen. We'll close it out. You'll have your part, I'll have my part, and we'll end it up like that. And hopefully we'll have a part two, okay? So just real quick, I just want to go over this part because what we're discussing here, we started with discussing with the person, okay? Where obviously 1856, the Bouvier is saying that a natural person is thus, and it talked about the free man versus a slave, which are types of persons. The slave sometimes considered a thing and not a person. All depends on the suit of the state, or when it comes to an injury done to a free man or white man, whatever they say. All right, so and outdated, okay, as it were, as Artie says. But furthermore, that a person is a member, okay, of a particular community, and we now know what that community is. It's a jural society, which is the synonym for a state. Not my words, their words, okay? And so what is this state as a jural society, and who are these members that join that particular society? We know that every law of a certain state does not necessarily apply to another citizen in another state. We know there's issues of diversification or diversity, all right, where you would go to the federal court if, it comes down to two different states or individuals within a state. With that being said, look at the rest of the definition of a citizen. All persons born, and we know that born and birth are not one and the same. Would you agree with that, Artie?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
That born and birth are not necessarily synonymous?
I don't know how you're saying.
It doesn't.
I mean,
never mind. Okay.
I don't know. I don't see where there's a distinction there. Somebody who's born or birthed. I mean, it's describing the same act or incident, just depending on the grammatical structure you're going to refer to it. I was born on a such and such date. My mother birthed me on the same date. So it's describing the same act. It's just depending on how you're framing the language here.
Okay, so from my research and study, the born denotes the characteristic that one is having during the birth, I should say. Okay, so like a born liar, it's a characteristic that attaches to you at your birth. But we can do that next time. Okay, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Obviously, that's the 14th Amendment. Now, look at what it says here about the citizen. Members, there it is again, of a political community, we understand, who in their associated capacity. They're in a particular capacity, an associated capacity, have established or submitted themselves to the dominion. That's a strong word, dominion. Of a government for the promotion of their general welfare and protection of their individual as well as collective rights. So I just want to focus on the first part of that. I'm interested to hear what Artie would have to say about the associated capacity. Capacity is one's ability, or like a ship has a capacity, a certain capacity. A bus has a certain capacity, meaning it can hold up to so much. It has it's a threshold issue, right? It can hold only or contain so much, okay, before you can't put anything else in it. All right. Also in electrical theory, obviously, you know, what a capacitor, one that's it stores energy. So these are by what, you know, these are members of that jural society or estate who are in a particular capacity. Okay. And as you saw up above, all right, it talked about the civil rights that are entitled or given to these in exchange, these people, these persons, in exchange for their, it says, allegiance, which is owed by a citizen. It's not an option. They're owed, and that suggests an obligor or a duty. So therefore, a contract or some type of an agreement.
There, I was agreeing with you right up until that point. Right up until until you made the analogy to a contract, a literal contract. No.
Well, how about a compact? How about a social compact?
Whenever I hear the term social contract or social compact, I've never heard it used in a literal sense. Because in other words, it's implying it because the usage of a literal contract implies that you need an individual's consent to be subject to the terms of the agreement. And the Constitution is applicable to all of the territorial boundaries, regardless of whether somebody has specifically agreed to and signed on to be subject to the Constitution and the laws derived therein.
Well, wouldn't that be defeated by the Dred Scott decision?
No, because Dred Scott was overruled by the 14th Amendment.
It actually uses the terminology, not overruled. It was nullified.
Superseded, nullified, yes. Superseded.
Yeah, that's not one and the same, though.
Superseded, meaning that Dred Scott is no longer valid law.
No.
Yes.
Nullified.
Yes. It's no longer valid.
So
in other words, it's no longer valid, and any reference to Dred Scott is going to be laughed out of court. And I'm going to tell you that right now. Any reference to Dred Scott as a positive application in a court proceeding is going to be laughed out of court.
Yep, that wasn't.
I just want to make sure that you understand that part.
No. My point was exactly what I said. That the Dred Scott decision, it was stated in that decision or held by Justice Taney that, hey, you were never a party to the Constitution. Now,
right, because under Dred Scott. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm under Dred Scott, Justice Taney held that, hey, whether I like it or not, basically, you are not party to the Constitution. The Founding Fathers did not have you in mind, and therefore you cannot use one of the instrumentalities of the Constitution, which is the federal courts, to sue, because you don't have standing or status to do so.
Right, because according to the
court...
Is
that correct, Artie?
Right, because the reason why he made that argument was because Dred Scott was a slave who escaped, and it was trying to make the argument that he, by virtue of him fleeing to a free state, he was no longer could be considered a slave, or he had regained his freedom. The court said, we can't even get to that because you don't even have standing to file suit, because under the guise of the Constitution, you are not a person. You are chattel. And so therefore you can't even come in and bring in an action in the first place. And so, but as a result of the 14th Amendment, it nullified the Dred Scott decision, saying that all persons born naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, and the intent based upon the legislative discussions by the Congress was that it was intended to make sure that all persons, including slaves, are persons and subject and are therefore citizens of the United States, and therefore are entitled to all of the liberties enshrined under the Constitution. So
Not
any
liberties.
references,
It doesn't say liberties. It says rights.
same thing.
And I know that you're familiar with the two types of rights that a citizen has. There's political and civil rights, correct?
Political rights, as in the right to vote, which they enshrined in the 15th Amendment, but then you have civil rights, which imply discrimination, etc. So
we'll broach that topic. Okay, we got to keep moving. But yeah, actually, I just want to correct you in one aspect of Dred Scott. Dred Scott was not a runaway slave. Dred Scott was owned by the Sanford family. That's the name of the case. Is actually Dred Scott versus Sanford,
right?
Or Scott v. Sanford. Sanford was actually the slave owner or what have you, and in fact, her husband had been deceased, and then she kept Dred Scott, and they had moved to Wisconsin, actually in the Midwest. And actually, what ended up happening is that when they made it to the West, Dred Scott said, hey, in the North, there is no slavery. In fact, 1774 to 1804, the North had gotten rid of it. They outlawed it, banned it. Okay, so
not completely in the North, but for the most part. But I digress.
Well, I don't want to grasp at straws, but
right. It's generally speaking.
Yeah, so that's what Dred Scott was. That was his platform. He was saying, well, I'm here now up north. So shouldn't I have the right to be free? I want my freedom. And so he went and sued for his freedom. And that's how it went. So I just wanted to correct that. But anyways, I think we made some great progress here. I know you're a super busy man, and I respect that, and I want to show respect to that. And I want to thank everybody else too. Let me just get through some of these. I'm going to let you already close out on your last or closing statement, if as it were, on the sovereign citizen thing, whether there's a discrepancy or whether you want to clear the air on something that people might misjudge you. You take your time to do that, and I'll close out. Go for it.
I think ultimately I wanted to come here and demonstrate that what a lot of us are discussing here is ultimately academic. We can have a discussion on the nature of rights, the nature of the application of rights, how civil society is supposed to operate, and how we're supposed to govern ourselves through the establishment of legislatures, the executive, judiciary, etc. I mean, that's something that we can have all day, every day. I'm always fascinated by it, especially the history stemming from it. But the problem is what ultimately matters is whether or not these sorts of arguments play out in an actual court of law, an actual law where the general polity grants jurisdiction. The general polity accepts as the governing rule of law. And the body of law that is passed by a state legislature and the federal government, etc., and what the court is going to recognize. The court, whether or not, is going to acknowledge that this person saying, "Hey, no, I corrected my status. I'm no longer a citizen. I'm an American national. So therefore, you don't have, you can't rule on this over me. You don't have jurisdiction over me in the court." And the thing is, in case after case after case after case after case after case, I see it every time. The courts go down. This is bullshit. Pardon my language. This is a bunch of schlock. And ultimately the courts, especially, more than 20 years after this thing keeps on growing, it's like the courts we're getting tired of it. And as you saw in that situation that caused us to meet each other, the court was very clear. What this person submitted was typical sovereign citizen rhetoric, sovereign citizen legal arguments referring to jurisdiction, status, and trying to say that this court can't do anything, but at the same time wants us to do something about his child support case. Which again is an example of oftentimes these sovereign citizen arguments have clearly are hypocritical or have a double standard. They don't want to acknowledge the jurisdiction of the courts, and period, but they still want the court to do something about their own personal case. But so
Agreed.
ultimately, at this situation, it's not going. The reason why I do what I do is because I just try to tell people this does not work. All this will do is get you in further trouble. It will get your window busted out by the cops at a traffic stop, and will probably get you a contempt of court charge if you try to make this into a thing at a traffic court case or your local court case. For worse, or even worse, it's going to get you tax penalties from the IRS, or you're going to end up having your house foreclosed on, because ultimately a lot of what these arguments make these claims about what can be done to help you in your situation, they do not work. And there is a massive body of law that have demonstrated that these arguments do not work. And any type of argument you can think of, they haven't worked. The straw man, the birth certificate, the treasury direct accounts, accepted for value, the right to travel, the 16th Amendment's unconstitutional, the 1933 House Joint Resolution 192. I've seen it all, and so have the courts. I'm going to end it right here. That your arguments, your legal premise is not new. They are about 60 years old, and the courts have seen it all. And I just want to give that as a warning to anybody who tries to do this, and anybody who wants to spend the $400 on a filing fee for nothing.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. And appreciate you being here for sure. Appreciate even, any warning or whatever you're trying to, in good faith, trying to give to anybody, to keep anybody from being misconstrued or misconceiving whether it's, what's the proper way and functionality of law versus legal, or legal versus law, whatever. So with that, I'll close out by saying this, that first of all, okay, I entertained for most of today a conversation with I think a gentleman, and this is what jumped this all off, is the fact that he was outlining to me. I wanted to know, what is a sovereign citizen to you? What is this all about in the first place? Okay, I don't personally categorize myself as any sovereign citizen, and like I already said, this is not something that the government. I didn't know this. This is not something that the government has labeled these particular people. This is something, according to Artie, that these people label themselves. I did not know that. I'm going to have to do some more research into that. Okay, but for right now, I can't rebut it because I haven't researched it, so I'm not going to. But I, for the record, definitely do not align with anything that is anti-state, anti-government. And I know a lot of the people that I deal with are not in line with that. Now, when it comes to, as you are as well, passionate about what it is you believe, what you have studied and researched, okay, I would think that you go in a line with what is foundational and what taps into your core beliefs, Artie. And so I think that there needs to be a greater tolerance and understanding of certain individuals, okay, myself included, who are avid researchers and study these things and are trying to use that rational analysis that the U.S. House of Representatives said that we as human beings have the capacity to do. Okay, and so what that means is I should have the right to pick up a book and to research some historical documents and things like that, and I should be able to come up with my own understanding there, and then try to back it up if I can by case law or whatever, precedent, whatever. And so that's what I choose to do. All right, and my journey has led me down a particular path, and that path is, well, definitely further enlightenment. I've not in any way attain where I want, what I want to be, or where I want to be. But certain things, certain cases I've combed through, and I've seen that certain holdings, there's more substance in what they don't say than what is actually being said. And so when I dig into what is not being said, and then I can line it up through a preponderance of evidence with other cases where things are not being said, that's what I stand upon, that platform of education and information. So just for clarity's sake, all right, I'm not extreme on any level, okay? I'm just avid researcher and studier. And so I share at an educational platform my research, just like an archaeologist shares things that he finds. Now, remember back in the day when they said they found the missing link and the Darwinism and all that kind of stuff, right? A lot of times, and it's admitted today, that sometimes they built a dinosaur or whatever from one tooth. Okay? But we accepted it socially. We accepted it because we appreciated the craft. We didn't ostracize that archaeologist and say, you're corrupt, you're an extremist, we didn't do that. Okay? Because we some of us appreciate science and the research and study behind it. And that's what I would ask from each side of this platform tonight. Artie's folks, I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate some of y'all started commenting, and I appreciate that. I'll put them up there as we close out. But I just want to make sure that we have that clear. Now, I hope to do this again. Okay, I really do. I think we can bring this together in some way and get some kind of understanding. And where we can't, that's fine. We just go our separate ways. But most of all, I want to encourage respect. Okay, I don't want anybody hurt. I don't want you exercising anything out there that you have not researched and studied yourself and it's not fact-based. I wouldn't encourage you to do anything like that. I love my law enforcement. I go to eat with my law enforcement friends and firefighters and all that. Okay. Are there corrupt ones out there? Absolutely. But there's corrupt in the civilian world where some of us are corrupt, or have been. So all I'm saying is I'd rather have peace and stop all that division. Okay. Where we don't get along, we just don't get along. Okay. But we're community wise for the betterment of mankind, we should figure this out and stop bullying on either side or labeling and all that kind of stuff. I just think we should stop doing that and just do your hard research. And there are extremists out there, and I'm not one of them, and none of my people are. All right. I don't believe in that. I believe render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, to borrow from a Bible scripture. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. But I have the freedom to research and study, and I won't be silenced when I spend so much time doing it. And this platform and these platforms are for educational purposes, okay? And so I think everybody deserves to be heard on both sides of the aisle, and that's what a healthy debate is supposed to be for. But again, Artie, did you have any last things you wanted to say?
Oh, I think we can close it out, and I'll just give you the last word.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, thank you for being here. Thank everybody for being here. Let me get through. Okay, Mark White, got it. Okay. All right. So we will do this again. Artie, any idea? Maybe a month out or something, or what do you think?
Yeah. We can keep in touch. My email address is on my channel on the About page, so you can send me an email there, and we can work something out.
Awesome. I really appreciate you, man, and keep doing your good work. I appreciate the work that you do. And everybody else that were here.
Thanks a lot.
Really appreciate it. Absolutely.
Have a good one.
All right, you too, man.
Yep.
All
right. Hang on. Well, that was a thing. Yeah, so as much as I really want to have another drink, I can't. Something came up at work, and it's going to require me to get up bright and early in the morning and be good and functional for what I gotta do. So I'll have to just stick with my one that I had. And I just got to go eat something and maybe play some video games to get my mind off of this. Maybe that's the palate cleanser that I need. Play some Battlefield. But I'm going to go through the super chats real quick. Smarty Marty, $9.99. Buy a burger and a pint on me. Thank you very much, Smarty Marty. Philosopher King Gaming, $2 for guest. Can you lie using quantum syntax grammar? In fairness, Philosopher, he's not one of those types, so he'd probably say no. William Foley, $5. Sweep the Legardy. Thank you very much, William. Akira 808 State, $4.99. I do not consent to the usage of Black's Law Dictionary. Well, I guess in this context, in this situation, we needed to use Black's. We needed to use at least a more modern version of Black's Law Dictionary to get through this, because we are ultimately, the premise behind this discussion was a definition of terms, which obviously these sovereign citizens love to do. These guys really love the etymology of words, as Juan Galt can attest to as well. Smarty Marty, thank you for the $4.99. He's turning my mind to mush. He talks in circles but says nothing. I mean, yeah, I mean, he, you know, I know with a lot of these guys, you have to do your best to follow the chain of etymological terminology to get to what he's ultimately concluding. And I really wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to let him try and make the argument that I'm just that he's just reading what's being said, and that no, he's actually drawing a conclusion or is drawing his own interpretation of what's being said under these terminologies. Oh, damn it. All right, this fucking camera is starting to piss me off. I gotta fix that camera. Anyone who thinks they understand English and that they have a firm grasp of it needs to get into contract law, then you'll lose your shit. I agree, Smarty Marty. Which is the irony. Goddess of Truth M, $5. Can you please explain the true process for announcing citizenship, including when a person must leave the country? You know, it's hard. I have a difficulty. I was actually just recently looking at that for another reason, but I believe I can't recall whether or not you have to already be out of the country, or whether you have a set period in which you have to leave the country upon renouncing citizenship. I couldn't tell you, so I apologize to that goddess. I'll have to look that up myself. $5 for Reverend Jason Reed. COVID positive test 4 weeks ago and out of commission for 2 weeks. Thanks, Artie, for your post. They helped my convalescence. Keep up the good work. Good night. Thank you very much, Reed. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. Yeah, definitely glad you're doing well and you're recovering. But thank you very much for your support. And God damn it, it froze again. Fucking Elgato pissing me off. And lastly, Captain Cactus with a £2 super chat. Just thank you very much just for putting up with all that rubbish. I appreciate that, man. So, okay, we're gonna stop it here. Tuesday's gonna be a wild one. I really want to do a video game stream. I feel like it's been ages since I've done a video game stream. And no, I don't consider Telling Lies to be that kind of video game. So I might play some Demon Souls. I don't know. But I really want to play some fucking video games and take a breather from all this. Between Kim Blandino and this guy, I need a breather. All right. So, all right, guys, have a good night. Take care. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Adios. What? 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 Hey. What's it? Hey. There, you guys get the cats. All right, good night. Bye. And it froze again. Damn it.